Boardwalk Empire is an American period crime drama television series created by Terence Winter and airing on premium cable channel HBO. The series is set in Atlantic City, New Jersey during the Prohibition era and stars Steve Buscemi as Nucky Thompson.Winter, a Primetime Emmy Award-winning screenwriter and producer. Created the show, inspired by the book Boardwalk Empire, The Birth, High Times, and Corruption of Atlantic City by Nelson Johnson about historical criminal kingpin Enoch L.Johnson. The pilot episode was directed by Martin Scorsese and produced at a cost of $18 million. On September 1, 2009, HBO picked up the series for an additional 11 episodes. The series premiered on September 19, 2010, and completed its 5-season run on October 26, 2014. Boardwalk Empire received widespread critical acclaim, particularly for its visual style and basis on historical figures, as well as for Buscemi's lead performance. The series received 57 Primetime Emmy Award nominations, including 2 for Outstanding Drama Series, winning 20. The series also won the Golden Globe Award for Best Television Series, Drama in 2011 and 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards for Outstanding Performance by an Ensemble in a Drama Series in 2011 and 2012. Series overview. Boardwalk Empire is a period drama focusing on Enoch "Nucky" Thompson, a political figure who rose to prominence and controlled Atlantic City, New Jersey, during the Prohibition period of the 1920s and 1930s. Nucky acts with historical characters in both his personal and political life, including mobsters, politicians, government agents, and the common folk who look up to him. The federal government also takes an interest in the bootlegging and other illegal activities in the area, sending agents to investigate possible mob connections but also looking at Nucky's lifestyle, expensive and lavish for a county political figure. The final season jumps ahead 7 years, to 1931, as Prohibition nears its end. Cast and characters. Main cast: Steve Buscemi as Enoch "Nucky" Thompson, the corrupt treasurer of Atlantic County and its most powerful political figure, based on Atlantic City political boss Enoch L.Johnson. Michael Pitt as James "Jimmy" Darmody, Nucky's one-time protege, an honor student who left Princeton to serve in World War I, works briefly for Nucky before striking out on his own into organized crime. Kelly MacDonald as Margaret Thompson, a young widow and mother. She turns to Nucky and becomes his mistress, and later his wife. Michael Shannon as Nelson Van Alden, George Mueller, a former Prohibition agent on the run. Under the alias George Mueller, he is a bootlegger in the Chicago area working as the muscle for Dean O'Banion's organization, as well as Johnny Torrio's organization. Shea Wiggum as Elias Eli Thompson, Nucky's younger brother and former sheriff of Atlantic County, now works as a part of Nucky's organization. Based on Alf Johnson. Alexa Palladino as Angela Darmody, Jimmy's wife and the mother of his young son. Michael Sturlbach as Arnold Rothstein, a powerful New York gangster who does business with Nucky. Charlie Luciano, Maya Lansky and Benjamin Siegel work for him. Stephen Graham as Al Capone, a violent Chicago gangster who is the right-hand man of Chicago crime boss Johnny Torrio. Vincent Piazza as Charles Lucky Luciano, a New York gangster and associate of Rothstein. Paz de la Huerta as Lucy Danziger, Nucky's former mistress. Michael Kenneth Williams as Albert Chalky White, a powerful African-American gangster in Atlantic City. Anthony LaCierra as Edward Anselm Eddie Kessler, Nucky's loyal butler. Paul Sparks as Mia Chislaw, Mickey Doyle Cusick, an Atlantic City bootlegger. Dabney Coleman as Commodore Lewis Kastner, Nucky's mentor and predecessor in Atlantic City, Jimmy's father. John Ellison Conley portrays a young Commodore in the season 5 flashbacks. Jack Huston, and as Richard Harrow, a former Army marksman who allies with Jimmy. Disfigured in the war, he wears a tin mask over half of his face. Gretchen Moll as Gillian Darmody, Jimmy's mother and Nucky's longtime friend. Charlie Cox is Owen Sleater, an IRA volunteer who works for Nucky, also having an affair with Margaret. Bobby Cannavale as Gip Rossetti, a ruthless gangster who challenges Nucky. Ron Livingston as Roy Phillips, a Pinkerton detective that poses as a wealthy out-of-town businessman who gets involved with Gillian Darmody in order to prosecute her for murder. Jeffrey Wright as Dr. Valentine Narcissa, a Harlem-based philanthropist and Doctor of Divinity, who plans to take over the heroin trade in Atlantic City. The character was inspired by Casper Holstein. Ben Rosenfield as Willie Thompson, Ellie's son, a Temple University law student and later a lawyer with the Justice Department. Recurring characters. Production, development, Emmy Award winner Terence Winter, who served as executive producer and writer on the critically acclaimed HBO series The Sopranos, was hired on June 4, 2008 to adapt the non-fiction book Boardwalk Empire, The Birth, High Times, and Corruption of Atlantic City. Winter had already been interested in creating a series set in the 1920s, feeling that it had never properly been explored before. For this reason, he decided to focus his adaptation of the book on the section about Prohibition. On September 1, 2009, it was announced that Academy Award-winning director Martin Scorsese would direct the pilot. It would be the first time he had directed an episode of television since an episode of Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories in 1986. The production would be very ambitious, with some even speculating it would be too large-scale for television. I kept thinking, this is pointless. How can we possibly afford a boardwalk, or an empire? Says creator Terence Winter. We can't call it Boardwalk Empire and not see a boardwalk. The production would eventually build a 300-foot-long boardwalk in an empty lot in Brooklyn, New York, at the cost of $5 million. Despite a reported budget of up to $50 million, the pilot's final budget came in at $18 million. On why he chose to return to television, Scorsese said, "What's happening the past 9 to 10 years, particularly at HBO, is what we had hoped for in the mid-60s with films being made for television at first. We'd hoped there would be this kind of freedom and also the ability to create another world and create long-form characters and story. That didn't happen in the 1970s, 1980s and in the 1990s, I think. And of course, HBO is a trailblazer in this. I've been tempted over the years to be involved with them because of the nature of long-form in the development of character and plot." Quote. He went on to praise HBO by saying, "A number of the episodes, in so many of their series, they're thoughtful, intelligent, brilliantly put together. It's a new opportunity for storytelling. It's very different from television of the past." Casting, Scorsese is an actor magnet, commented Winter. "Everybody wants to work with him. I had all these pictures on my wall and I thought, I'd really better write some good stuff for these people." Single quote. In casting the role of Nucky Thompson, Winter wanted to stray from the real-life Johnson as much as possible. "If we were going to cast accurately what the real Nucky looked like, would have cast Jim Gandolfini." The idea of casting Steve Buscemi in the lead role came about when Scorsese mentioned wanting to work with the actor, whom Winter knew well, having worked with him on The Sopranos. Winter sent the script out to Buscemi, who responded very enthusiastically. "I just thought, wow, I'm almost sorry I've read this, because if I don't get it, I'm going to be so sad." My response was, "Terry, I know you're looking at other actors. and he said, "No, no, Steve, I said we want you," explained Scorsese. "I love the range he has, his dramatic sense, but also his sense of humor." The casting of Buscemi was soon followed by Michael Pitt, best known for his roles in films such as Murder by Numbers, The Dreamers, and in the television series Dawson's Creek. He was soon joined by Kelly MacDonald, Vincent Piazza and Michael Shannon, who had just received an Oscar nomination for his role in the Sam Mendes film Revolutionary Road. Filming for the pilot took place at various locations in and around New York City in June 2009. In creating the visual effects for the series, the company turned to Brooklyn-based effects company Brainstorm Digital, says Glenn Allen, visual effects producer for Boardwalk Empire and co-founder of Brainstorm. "It's our most complex job to date. Everything is HD now, so we have to treat it like a feature film." Quote, "Anytime you get to work on the period piece, it's more fun," comments visual effects artist Chris Pincus Wesselman, who used archival photographs, postcards, and architectural plans to recreate the Atlantic City boardwalks as accurately as possible. "We got to explore what the old Atlantic City was really like. The piers were one of the toughest parts because every summer they would change, new houses, new advertisements." Quote, "It took 2 months for the firm to complete all the visual effects for the pilot." Boardwalk Empire began filming on location at historic Richmond Town on Staten Island in March 2012. Costume design. Designed by John Dunn and tailored by Martin Greenfield, Boardwalk Empire's costumes were based on 1920s tailoring books from the Fashion Institute of Technology's research libraries and examples found at the Brooklyn Museum and the Met. The costumes have also been rented from the Daybreak Vintage Company located in Albany, NY, which also exhibits at the Manhattan Vintage Clothing Show. Dunn's designs were meticulously detailed, including a collar pin for Nucky's shirts and even going so far as to incorporate specially ordered woolens for suiting. Dunn told Esquire magazine in a September 2010 interview with Marty and Terry Winters, "I developed the feel for each of the characters. We all wanted it to be very, very accurate and specific to the period. I don't like to do boring clothing, but you also have to make sure that you're not suddenly putting somebody in something that isn't going to make sense 4 episodes from now." These tailors were supplied by textile importer HMS Fabrics and Gladson Limited. Martin Scorsese's contribution. Martin Scorsese was involved in the filming even before creator Terence Winter. He directed the pilot and established the look of the show, which other directors later emulated for consistency. He is also one of the executive producers of the show. Winter has stated that Scorsese weighs in on the casting decisions and reviews all of the cuts and dailies, up until the shooting of the show's first season. Scorsese and Winter would meet every Sunday afternoon to review what went on during the week, where Scorsese would have comments and suggestions. Scorsese continued to be creatively involved in the ongoing production, but did not direct any more episodes. Crew Scorsese and Winter were joined as executive producers by Mark Wahlberg, Stephen Levinson and Tim Van Patten. Van Patten had been a regular director on The Sopranos and also served as a regular director for Boardwalk Empire. Lawrence Connor was a co-executive producer. Connor also wrote for the show and had previously been a writer on The Sopranos. Howard Corder and Margaret Nagel served as supervising producers and writers for the first season. The crew were recognized with multiple Primetime Emmy Award nominations for their work on the first season. Corder returned as a co-executive producer and writer for the show's second season and as an executive producer in the third season. Soundtrack. The music used for the opening titles is "Straight Up and Down" by the Brian Jonestown Massacre. It was chosen by series creator Winter to create a sense of the unexpected. The soundtrack is composed of music from the 1890s to 1920s performed by artists such as Regina Spektor, Leon Redbone, Loudon Wainwright III, Martha Wainwright, Catherine Russell, Nellie McKay, Kathy Breyer, and Vince Giordano and the Nighthawks Orchestra. Boardwalk Empire Volume 1, music from the HBO original series, featuring music from seasons 1 and 2, was released on September 13, 2011. The soundtrack won the Grammy Award for Best Compilation Soundtrack for Visual Media at the 54th Grammy Awards. Advertising. To promote the second season, which started on September 25, 2011, the producers paid the Metropolitan Transportation Authority of New York $150,000 to decorate and operate a New York Transit Museum train of 4 low-voltage cars for each weekend in September 2011. The subway cars used were 5,290, 5,292, 5,443, 5,483. The train operated between noon and 6 p.m., and as an express between 96th Street and 42nd Street Times Square on the IRT Broadway, 7th Avenue line. While the MTA runs nostalgia trains each year, this was the first time they had been used for an advertising tie-in. HBO also sponsored an Atlantic City beautification project with the tagline, "Compliments of Nucky Thompson," and paid for eastbound tolls into Atlantic City on the AC Expressway for the weekend of September 24, 2011.